Hello YouTube, and welcome to a special series I'm doing to catch anyone up on the happenings of our Icewind Dale campaign. It will be episodes 1 through 6. Normally there will be 5 episodes at a time, but a little bit behind, so we're just going to make this one have 1 extra episode. And since this is all about saving a little bit of time, not having to watch a bunch of episodes, let's just hop right into it. So we're going to start out by going over our journey and going over the beginning where we met our heroes, starting with Eonar. So at the beginning, we met a druid who was a nomad by Eonar, very interested in fire, and kind of used to go around the different 10 towns. We also have Bins, which is a tabaxi monk who is also a chef, pretty well known to the 10 towns. Then we had Ralgar, who is a brother of another one of our characters, Sir Jensen. They're brothers by adoption, but they are soldiers of the 10 towns and they follow the 10 towns rules to the book. Literally, there's a book. And then last but not least, we have Vice, a mysterious goblin rogue that we still have a lot to figure out about. We'll see as things unfold. So yeah, in the very first episode, all of our characters were brought together, all with a mysterious letter that reads, "We both seek to end this wretched winter. If you have the conviction to meet my contact in Bryn Shandir at the Northlook Tavern on the 3rd day of Midsummer. B." So they all made their way to Bryn Shandir and all met up with this old beggar woman who was asking for money. And through their various actions, they showed a little bit about their characters, whether they would give her money or not. And she ended up going with Ralgar to the Northlook Tavern where they all met up. And turns out the old beggar woman was V's contact. The contact essentially said, look at all these terrible things happening. Look at the curse that Ariel has done with this wretched eternal winter. It needs to be stopped. Now, this contact didn't expect them to go out and stop it at this moment. She pretty much said, go learn the plight of the 10 towns, learn the terribleness that's been happening, gain some experiences out in the world, see what you can do to help, and then come back to me afterwards and say whether you want to continue this quest. And then they all went on their way. On their way out, right at the end of the first session, they came across a bunch of dwarves that had just come back, having lost their iron bar cart to a yeti, and just killed one of their friends. And through some deliberation as to whether these dwarves were legitimate or not, the characters decided to go out to find where the iron bars were. In exchange for a dog sled to Dugan's Hole, which is where they found where they would want to go first after talking to Beldora. And so that was the end of episode 1. So in episode 2, they ended up trekking out to go get these iron bars. There was a blizzard along the way that they lost a good amount of time on, but there wasn't really anything else major until they found where the iron bars were. Some dead corpses, and the only tracks that were there weren't of a yeti. It was of a bunch of smaller folk. Turns out to be goblins. So they followed those tracks. Through a little bit of deliberation, the paladin got impatient and ended up killing one of the goblins in one shot from afar with a javelin. Really good roll. Which started a large combat that eventually ended with the goblins surrendering. The goblins pretty much being like, hey, it's terrible out here. We don't want to die. Please stop killing us. We've done nothing to you. Take your iron. So the characters, after feeling kind of bad, went on their way with the iron, went back to Bryn Shandir, turned it in, got the dog sled to Dugan's Hole. Now, Dugan's Hole is special because that's where someone who had been murdering people who was skipping the life tribute to Ariel. Now, certain towns would sacrifice human beings to Ariel, thinking it might appease the winter. And these towns had people skipping it, running away, but someone was killing all of these people to make sure that they didn't get away with it. So they went on their way to Dugan's Hole. And that would be the end of episode 2. Start of episode 3. Right outside of Dugan's Hole, they came across a limping wolf that was talking about how his master treats him terribly. They just believed the wolf, went and followed the wolf's track, ended up meeting the wolf's brother, going into a large, what looked like ice giant hut, and they had to fight a mammoth. They went the brute force way without realizing it, ended up fighting and killing a mammoth, which was surprising at level 2. And then when they made their way around to rescue the children that were essentially, the wolves had told them earlier that they were children that were being held captive by their master. But went to go rescue the children. Turns out the wolves were evil all along. The wolves jumped them. They actually had to run away from that encounter because one of them went down and almost died, down to literally a dice roll. Like we're talking 2 deaths, 2 fails, 2 successes. And due to that happening, they all run away, ended up tricking the wolves into running further than them, came back, saved the character that was unconscious but stable on the ground, ran all the way back to Dugan's Hole, and was like, we gotta come back when we're stronger. So that was halfway through 3. So they go to Dugan's Hole, they learn of the caravan that has this man who has been killing these sacrifices to Oriel, who have been skipping that sacrifice specifically under the name of Sefik Caltro. They talked to the caravan that he was with, get a little bit of information about that, and then decided to hold up for the night and wait it out and see if Sefik Caltro gets separated from the caravan, which he does. They go, they confront him. There really isn't much talk. It ends up being a big fight. They take him out without a lot of issues. And then they end up going and meeting Beldora, who had originally told them to go kill Sefik Caltro in Dugan's Hole, because apparently Beldora had been the reason that the caravan that Sefik Caltro was with was waylaid in Dugan's Hole, giving them a little bit of time. So after a little bit of back and forth, Beldora pretty much just said, yeah, go, I have no other leads for you. Go do whatever you'd like. Maybe go back to your hometowns. But first things first, they'd hit level 3. It was time to deal with those wolves. They go back in the next episode. They deal with those wolves pretty handily. They save the kids, they bring them back to Dugan's Hole, and they make their way to Goodmead, which happens to be the hometown of both Rhalgar and Sir Jensen. So they make their way to Goodmead, find out as they're coming in, the speaker had just been murdered by something large, stealing some casks of mead. They chase that large thing into the woods. They find out it's a Verbeeg, which is like a giant. They kill it. They kill everything in the cave because once again, it wasn't even their fault. They just went the specific way that ended up with slowly everything in the cave being introduced into combat. They're not very stealthy. It happens. So they ended up killing everything in the cave. They ended up, on a side note, killing the Verbeeg's essentially girlfriend, who came back to go see if said Verbeeg, Doug, was alive. Yeah, they ended up having to kill her after that too, because she became enraged and wouldn't stop because she knew they killed Doug. And then after all of that ordeal, they went back into Goodmead. They presented the town with the kegs because we have Rhalgar is a bugbear, and Rhalgar can lift a lot of weight. So he lifted a lot of kegs, and a couple of them, I think one of the other kegs was lifted by someone else. They got it all back to town, gave it back to the town, took a long rest, and then the next day they ended up hearing about an election because, you know, the speaker's dead. The speaker of the town said they got to re-elect. And essentially the entirety of the 6th episode was essentially the election. They found out that the good person running in the election, or supposed good person running the election, didn't want to run. And essentially she pawned it off on Sir Jensen. Sir Jensen started running. Turns out he had a rival. Rival didn't like that Sir Jensen was running because he thought that he would lose. The rival then was gone. And then when the rival came back, you find out that he staged an attack on the meadery and he beat back some thugs. It turns out it was all just staged. The group chased after the thugs, and after a very close combat, was able to take all but one out. The last one they kept alive, learned everything, that it was all a setup, that the speaker of Targos, one of the 10 towns, seems to be doing some crooked things, and then won the election. Sir Jensen is currently the speaker of Goodmead. And then after that, they made their way to East Haven. At the end of the 6th episode, they witnessed a burning of a murderous wizard in East Haven. Learned of a bunch of fishermen that are currently out in the lost somewhere out at sea, past where the ice is, because there's a lot of ice around East Haven's ferries. And learned about a seance that was about to happen, a seance of the White Lady in the White Lady Inn, Halfling. And that was pretty much it. That's your Cliff Notes version. So yeah, hopefully you guys are all caught up. We'll be doing this every 5 episodes. And I hope you all enjoyed. If you have anything you'd like to see, maybe more in depth, less in depth, maybe a different background, different music, whatever, just leave them in the comments below. Give this channel a subscribe if you would like to know when more episodes come out. We do play every Wednesday, except for this Wednesday, the 17th, but we play pretty much every Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern. And there's always an edited version of the next episode up on Monday. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Goodbye.